like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Joanne Orlando, who is a children and technology expert from the University of Western Sydney.
Not sure what a real expert is, but yes, I do a lot of work around children's uses of technology, and my message is very similar to PASH's message, and it's really ensuring and supporting the well-being of children and young people, but particularly around their uses of digital technology. So I always think I have the best job in the world. I spend a lot of time talking to teenagers, children, and the adults that guide them, the parents, educators, and people working in all different kinds of organisations to get a really good all-round understanding of the ways young people are using technology and the decisions they're making in their uses of technology, and helping me to understand that so that I can then talk to the adults who are caring for them to give them a better understanding. And I do that in Australia, and I do it in many countries around the world. So I think that is a brilliant job, and I absolutely love it. The last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time in families' homes. So talking to teenagers and children in their homes and talking to them about the ways they use technology in the home space as well as socially, and talking to their parents as well. So I normally go into a home and I'll spend a couple of hours in there. And I'm a bit like David Attenborough, I like to think, except he's out in Africa and I'm in homes, sitting in the corner sometimes I am talking, I'm doing all kinds of things, sitting in the kitchen, talking to one of the parents while they're cooking dinner, or I might be interviewing the 2-year-old on the lounge room on her iPad, all different kinds of things, but I spend a lot of time in homes. And of all the homes I've gone into in the last couple of years, and that's a real lot, there's one main thing that I see that is happening in all homes, and you know this, but it just stands out so much to me, it's black and white, that our uses of technology are generational. So the way a 40-year-old uses technology is different to the way a 20-year-old uses it. It's different to the way a 15-year-old uses it, is different to a 12-year-old and the way they use it, and so forth. My youngest participant in my studies has been 11 months old, so she was a little bit hard to interview, but she was even using it differently to everyone else as well. And that makes it a little bit tough for the parents and for those people who are guiding children's uses of technology, because we haven't really been in that place in the way a 15-year-old uses technology now. We haven't really experienced that as parents. We can understand a whole lot of other things that a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old might be doing, but that technology use is a little bit outside our own experiences. And that does a couple of things for parents that I'm seeing, other key things that I'm seeing that are happening in families' homes. One is that parents can tend to be a bit uncertain as to how to guide children in their technology use. They're not 100% sure of what to do. And often the reason families let me into their homes is because they want to ask me a whole lot of questions afterwards. You know, I need your advice on this, or I need your advice on that. So there's this sort of cloud of uncertainty around parents. Now, if you think of it, we are the first generation of parents who have to guide children around their technology use. You know, we're these trailblazers, so we're still making lots of decisions, making lots of mistakes, and trying to work out what's happening. And the second thing is that because of this, we strangely, and I've got 3 children myself, so you know I understand this completely, we also tend to often block ourselves out from our children's technology use because of this uncertainty. So often when I go into homes and I'm talking to parents of children all sorts of ages, the parents won't really be 100% sure what their kids are doing on technology. They'll often give me a whole lot of complaints, they're on there too much, or yeah, they're just in their room on their phone, something like that, but not really be 100% sure of exactly what games they like to play, or what they're doing, or how they're spending hours and hours and hours on their phone. They're not 100% sure. So in family homes, I tend to see this disconnect The parents are here and family life is over here and family activity is here. But when it comes to technology use, it seems to be a little bit marginalised and pushed out to the side. So when I talk to children and I find out about the things that they're doing on their devices, the sort of content, the sort of ideas they're seeing, the sort of advertising they're seeing, things like the theatre, the youth theatre we're showing today, and the sort of sexual activity that they're seeing online, or the violent activity that they're seeing online. You know, there's lots and lots of video clips about violent activity, and I always think that's just as much of an issue as the sexual activity is. It just gets less airplay. We're not 100% sure. So children are dealing with these kinds of content, these kinds of ideas, and these kinds of issues often on their own or talking to each other. And it's not just the teenagers who are working with and exchanging and engaging with these ideas. We often tend to think of pornographic images, pornographic content as something that teenagers see, and it certainly is. The stats show that it's about 90% of teenagers who are engaging in that, whether voluntary or involuntary. But it's also starting with children who are much younger. So we know that the average 2-year-old is about 80 to 85% of 2-year-olds use a device every day, which is amazing. Brand new sort of stats out there. But in doing that, they're also seeing sexualised content as part of their gameplay. And you might think, well, why are people making games for 2-year-olds that have got to do with sexual content? Well, they're not, but it's the ads that pop up outside of it. For those of you who have young children, you'll know that those pop-up ads are happening all the time. And some of the most popular games tend to have these pop-up ads. So very young children are seeing this kind of sexualised content as well. So the thing to think about is how you position technology use in your family home, or how you consider it as part of your interchange with a young person or with a child, and the advice that you give. I think there's a couple of key messages I would like you to think about, and I'll spend a little bit of time on these key messages. One is, in terms of your family home, or in terms of the ways that you're considering technology use, how do you position technology use in terms of how much you value it or your attitude towards it? I'll give you an example. I was talking to a couple of 16-year-old boys a few weeks ago, and they were saying that their phone is the thing that their parents punish them with. So their phone is the thing that their parents take away from them if they're in trouble. And that happens in lots of family homes, and we know that's the best way to get teenagers. We know it'll hurt if we take away their phone, if we ban their use for a while. But in saying this, they were also saying, well, you know, I'm not really going to tell my parents anything that I see that is a worry or that's uncomfortable, because I don't want them to take my phone off me. So I think it's a really important thing to think about, how you position technology use and how that phone comes into play in the ways that you make sure that your children are behaving in a way that you think is appropriate. A second message, or a second idea, is how much of technology use is brought into your family's conversations. So as I was saying, parents often don't know what kids are doing on their technology. They know that they might be playing a particular game, or they know a little bit, but not a lot. So I'm not talking about surveillance, but I'm talking about how much do you bring technology use into family conversation. It's important. I find that the families, you know, technology use can cause a lot of arguments in families' homes. I'm definitely seeing that. It's absolutely a source of argument in a lot of homes. But in the homes where there's least arguments, where there's much more balance and much more calm and positive attitude to technology, is where technology use is valued more by the parents. And by that I don't mean that parents are valuing the children's technology use 24/7 or their own use, but more that technology use is brought out into the open. Parents are talking about technology use, they're encouraging children to talk about technology use, and it's just part of daily conversation. So what they're doing is that they're nurturing this positive environment around technology use. That way, I'm finding that the children and young people are a little bit more willing to talk about things that they're doing online, things that they're seeing online, and it helps parents to have points of discussion to guide children, because we know that's what we're there to do. But also it helps parents to understand their children as technology users a lot more. And in the families that I'm going to that are doing that, I can see that there is such a much more positive and happy environment when it comes to technology use. And the third thing I like to talk about is things such as privacy. Well, actually, I'll just talk about privacy on its own for a moment. I think that the Youth Theatre really brought out some ideas around privacy. You know, technology and social media and the online space amplifies everything that we do. You know, we see so much, and our children are immersed in environments with reality TV and everyone everyone talking about their most intimate secrets on the screen or in front of a camera. It's just part of our culture and part of our society today. So when we're considering things such as privacy, we get very different opinions. For example, I was talking to someone who was probably in her 50s today, and she was saying, you know, privacy's dead, kids don't care about privacy. She was really just cutting it off like that. And then I was talking to a 20-year-old a little while ago, and she said, what's so important about privacy? Why do we need to keep protecting our privacy? And that really showed me that privacy is something that is dynamic. It's a situation that keeps changing. You know, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago, maybe a bit more, that women didn't show their ankles. Okay, now it's quite different. So to consider the ways children use social media and to consider privacy from now, 2017, and the ways that we consider privacy. So I think to be much more, not to be much more, that's not the right word, but to consider privacy from this generation and how they understand it, as opposed to the generation that we were growing up. I think that's important as well in making the decisions and guiding children and helping to understand why they're making the decisions that they're doing as well. And one last thing is to consider how much a part of your child's technology use you are. Do you do things together online? And I don't mean sit next to them every minute of the day and doing things, because they don't want that, and you don't have time to do that, and you probably don't want to do that either. But what sorts of things do you do online together? You know, I think it's important to consider family environments and the ways we guide children to be part of different aspects of their life. You know, we take them to soccer training, we take them to netball training and so forth. What part of their technology use do you engage in? And how often do you do that? And is it done in a positive way, or is it done in a way just to keep a check on them? And one last thing is, and that this is associated with it, that the same lady that I was talking to about privacy, she said, you know, it would just be simpler if we just had this signal. So if a child moved out, you know, it cut the Wi-Fi so they can't use their device in their bedroom, and it cut the Wi-Fi so it can't use their device in any room that we didn't want them to do, we didn't want them to use it. So it would bring all the kids out of their bedrooms into the lounge room to use technology, to use their technology. And she said, and then we'd be able to just see what they're doing. You know, that's the best thing. But I think as parents, our job is more than just to see. Our job is to guide, to explain, to talk, to help our children in the best way possible, so that they're not just surviving in the digital age, but so that they're flourishing in the digital age. And it's a positive part of their life and a positive part of your family's life as well.